things like papayas and all growing up on the tree.
Even chilies in the garden.
With the cassava, cut it and put limbu merchu, so, lime and chili powder.
In the school as well, there were lots of these mango trees. We used to just throw stones and eat the mangoes, and then put some salt and pepper.
Memories through the food of Uganda, the place where I was born, but left at the age of 2. Food tells the story of my family's journey, like many others, exiled and forced to flee.
Food also and always does tell stories of immigration, of culture, of fusion.
I'm Rupal Rajani. Through my series, Exiled, food has popped up in many conversations, even from the more darker political moments.
I had met Idi Amin, it was in 1968. I said, "Why are there no Asians in the Ugandan army?" And he said, "Because we don't eat choroko." Choroko is the Swahili name for dal, for lentils. And he said, "We eat red blood meat. We are brave people. You are not Africans."
To telling the story of arriving in the UK and not knowing what was next.
In our camp, they weren't making traditional Indian food. So we used to have chips and mashed potatoes and boiled peas and baked beans. We never had that in Uganda.
As a child growing up in the UK in the 1970s and 80s, every day I was used to eating home-cooked food. Curry, rice, chapatis, yogurt and salad every day. Weekends, though, were different and about something special. Samosas, bhajiyas, chips, cassava chips, corn on the cob curry in a peanut sauce or a spicy stuffed banana curry with hot chapatis, a fusion of African, Ugandan and Indian Gujarati flavours. But my world outside was a very different one in many ways. Even when it came to food, it was about trying to fit into a new culture, a new land, and learn how to like English vegetarian food. Boiled veg, quite bland. And remember, this was 70s, 80s Britain, so not the vegetarian and vegan cuisine you might get today. So with all of this, it's no surprise that one of my favourite memories of growing up was always coming home from school and seeing my mum busy cooking the evening meal while listening to the 1 hour of Asian radio we used to have back then. Dinner times were about the aroma of familiar spices being thrown into a pot of that evening's curry and the sizzling sounds as everything came together, and the smell of chapatis that wafted across the whole house being freshly cooked. That will be ingrained in my mind forever. The sense of familiarity and comfort and safety that brings. Meal times encapsulated our history, our journey, but we didn't talk about that. Food was our safe space, I guess, a place of fond memories of a country that, well, we'd been kicked out of. Meera Manik is an author who's written a cookbook rooted in her heritage and family stories.
My grandmother actually learnt properly how to cook when she got married and moved to Uganda from Mombasa, and she learnt how to cook everything in Uganda. And it's just fascinating to hear how they formed these amazing communities and friendship and actually shared the food and shared their crops.
How much were they influenced, Meera, would you say, with local foods?
That's one thing that I've actually gone into in my book. I've got a recipe called matoki curry. Matoki means plantain, and it's a curry that was only created because they found this vegetable in Uganda, which was not found in India. They came from India to Uganda, found a few things like matoki and cassava and made different things with them.
So when I hear some of my family talking about their memories of lush green land, fresh vegetables, mango trees in the back garden, I do get a little envious. It's amazing how food can take you to a certain time and place in your life, bringing back precious memories. Like for this group of friends.
They just put a seed in there and it will start growing.
Even chilies in the garden.
Chilies was common. But anything you throw, even in a little bit of land, it will just start growing.
And Kokira was one of these villages where everything grew, sugar cane came from there, every day you would see the cart of sugar canes. But when we were coming back from school, we used to pull it from the cart, the sugar cane, and just eat it, without washing, without doing anything.
A food that is synonymous with Uganda is cassava, also known as mugo. Let me take you back to Mbale in the eastern part of Uganda and Ranjan and her husband Hasu describing how one lady known as Mogawaramasi and her family brought the whole town together via Mogo.
Now, the beauty about our story is that Mogawaramasi used to live just opposite the school. In the recess in the morning, which is break time, we used to go across the road and go to Mogawaramasi's house because they used to make the most delicious mogo.
90% of the school students, everybody wanted to go and eat Masi's chips, Masi's mogo, although there was a school canteen available. But there was this beauty of how Babi and Masi cooked that mogo and made those chips. That was the highlight of the thing, eating mogo, amliwari chips with nimak marchu in it. So lovely times we have spent. And every kid in Mabale will have gone to Masi's house at least 2 or 3 times a week, if not every day.
So what was it like in 1972, coming to the UK as refugees, not only to a totally different climate and culture, but also food, and food in a resettlement camp at that?
Food was English vegetarian. We did enjoy a couple of weeks, but then, we were missing Indian food.
For the first time in this series, Exiled, I've been talking to my older siblings about their experiences of leaving Uganda and coming to England. My sister Jayshree was a teenager when she came, and my brother Suresh, a bit older.
We used to have chips in Uganda, but salad and boiled peas and baked beans, we never had that in Uganda.
And did Mum and Dad eat it as well?
Yeah, we all had to eat it because there was no traditional Indian food in our camp.
But there was in other camps, wasn't there, Suresh?
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Because people started making the food themselves, didn't they, in some of the other camps, from what I understand.
Yes. But then we where would we get the ingredients from? So my dad came to Leicester and he brought us some Indian food. Do you remember that, Rupal?
That's right.
So what did that feel like to be able to eat?
It felt so good to have Indian food. We all enjoyed it very much, and thank you to whoever sent us.
Hearing that, I just can't believe within a day or two they were eating new foods, so different to what they were used to. Food was reflecting their journey from a place called home to one of unfamiliarity. And for some, they actually quite liked the change. After all, it was something different. Here's Hasu again, and Bharti.
Although I was here a year before, I went to see family in the camps they were there. And when we talk about food like giving baked beans and, other bread and things, for the new arrivals, this was a different variety, something we had never had in Uganda. Baked beans and chips was wonderful to eat for some of us.
So my brother, or I don't know, somebody bought a can of pineapple. When I tried it, it was nothing like what I had, and I couldn't even have pineapple again.
Incredible. Fruit in a tin as well as beans in tins. Imagine that after picking everything fresh and from trees. So 50 years on, I think about just how have we as Ugandan Asians carried the food of our journey and heritage across continents and made it part of who we are in Britain today. In parts of the country like in Leicester, where I live, there are many successful restaurants and food shops as a result. And so some may see it as a success story, a business story, and in many ways it is. But for me, it's more than that. It reaffirms my Ugandan and Indian identity, my heritage. Here's author Mira Manik again, talking about how she describes it, the suitcase of culture and recipes.
The Gujaratis came to Uganda with a sort of suitcase of culture, recipes, stories, language, all those traditions, all those things. They came kind of packed, with a tightly packed suitcase, unpacked it in Uganda, and really just safeguarded it. And they kept alive the language, the traditions, the recipes, the food, everything. They kept this alive. And then they packed it all up when Idi Amin threw them out, and they came to London with the very same suitcase. So while India may have and has moved on in many ways, what we've inherited in terms of recipes, in terms of language and all these things is very, very close to the villages of India.
So the food carries through generations, and that identity, that history, which came to an abrupt end 50 years ago, still lives on.
Our grandparents and parents have come up with so many amazing recipes that we now have in the UK. And we eat thinking they're Indian recipes, but they're actually just combinations of food, which for me is really interesting because that through food depicts the fusion of cultures.
Exiled. A journey with me, Rupal Rajani. Stories of Ugandan Asians 50 years on.